Aloha, friends. I had the pleasure recently of interviewing Brenton Awa, and he is running for State Senate District 23. Now, that begins in the Kane'ohe area, runs through Kahalu'u, and all the way out onto the North Shore. And he discussed with me some very important initiatives, and I know that they're going to resonate with all of you, whether you are a local or native to Hawaii, a parent, or perhaps a concerned community member. Stay tuned. Brenton is also a Hawaii native. He was born and raised on the windward side of Oahu, grew up in Ka'ava, and graduated from Kahuku High School. Go Red Raiders. Wonderful to have you here, Brenton. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to chat with me and get some dialogue going on what's happening in our community and some of the initiatives you plan to address once elected. First of all, huge congratulations, Brenton, on winning the recent primaries.
Thank you. Aloha. Thank you.
Yes. Now, as a newcomer to all of this, how has campaigning been for you so far, this new political journey as a first timer?
For me, we've been blessed from the start of this. This is not something that I ever thought of doing or had an interest doing. But in short, my departure from the news last summer led to it indirectly. It took a while, but the campaign has just been blessed. I wouldn't change anything that happened as far as, in my lifetime, because it all set me up to be right here, right now, with the knowledge that I have and more that I'm gaining along the way. So the campaign's been really, really well. Everything we've needed, we've had. It appeared at the moment that we need it. We were just blessed.
Awesome. Love hearing that. Well, your presence is certainly palpable in my community in Kahalu'u. We see the signs everywhere. You got a lot of support, certainly on this end.
Yeah, well, generations of my family, yeah. So, I mean, I was born and raised, but so is my dad and his dad and his dad and his dad. So yeah, Kahalu'u, we have deep roots in this community.
Got it. Awesome. All right. Well, now, many of us have been familiar with you over the years, as you kind of touched upon, as a news anchor on local television. But what some may not know is that you were also an educator in our local schools. How did that opportunity present itself?
Yeah, so when I came out of the news, I was looking for the door. I knew, well, this door closed. That's the door that I thought I was going to do my entire career was broadcast news, be a journalist. And I kept doing that. I had time. I had a lot of time on my hands when I came out. And so I kept doing that. But I realized, well, this doesn't pay. And while it feels good and it's making changes, I need to have some kind of, income. And substitute teaching doesn't pay much, but at least it allowed me to go into the school, teach the kids my skills, get them started on their journey. And then we did a couple other things too. Started a broadcast program at Kahuku High School, and we saved their farm last semester.
That is amazing. And so I read about the news broadcasting class at Kahuku High School. And I've even heard that there are resources, there's equipment for students to learn more about journalism, media, public speaking. How awesome to bring that to, one of our local public schools and certainly your alma mater.
Yeah, no, it's needed. It's needed. The kids, there's the students. They're so talented. I think I told you the story before, but I had a eighth grader. I didn't know how old she was at the time, but I put everybody who was in this class, and it was all different ages, through a writing test. And this eighth grader wrote at the level of, the most inexperienced producer, like an entry level producer. But that was the level I could see. The talent was there. It was just, guidance. And that's eighth grade. So that's well ahead of when I started.
I believe that. And every keiki, presents so much potential, and it's all about honing in, on that potential and building those skills. And, in terms of communications, what I'd like to also learn about you is career in journalism. What led you to a career out of all the opportunities and all the disciplines and career choices? What was it about journalism that appealed to you?
So for me, I never was one to watch the news. I couldn't tell you what different channels there were in Hawaii. I knew like Robert K. Kaula, I knew that. Joe Moore, obviously. But other than that, I had no idea about news when I was in high school, even in college, really. Because all my time, when I do something with my life, I devote everything to it. And so my life at the time had been wrestling. That's what I went to college for. And it wasn't until my senior year in college where it was like, well, what am I going to do? You can either go fight or you can coach. I didn't really want to do either of those because my body was all banged up already from so long. So I stumbled into an opportunity. And that's how my life's kind of been, it's been, as long as I wake up every day, I put, as much positive energy forward and do, sit horse with blinds and go for the goal. I found that I know where I want to go. I don't necessarily know when the doors are going to open or whatnot, but when they do, it's success is found there. And so back to college, my senior year, there was a college TV news station for the town of Clarion, the school that I went to in Pennsylvania. There's about 25,000 people when the school's what is that called? It's slipping my mind here. When the school is happening, fall in, and when the school's in session, about 25,000 the population in Clarion. It drops to about 10,000 when it's not. So anyway, the school had its own news broadcast, and they covered heavily the wrestling team. And naturally, I knew wrestling. Had no background for TV other than I learned how to speak in college. And what I mean by that is, if you ask my friends back in high school, hey, would this guy ever, out of all the friends, would this be the guy who gets on the news? They'd be like, no way. That would be 1,000,000 to 1 shot. And it's because I was so quiet. I was very quiet in high school. And that's why I can relate to a lot of these kids, these students, these young men and women at school, because I was there, right, at Kahuku. I know essentially how they're thinking, what the barriers they face are. But so my life all ties together. But going back to how I got into the journalism part of it, it was that they needed a sports anchor at my college station. And that sports anchor's job was to cover the wrestling team. So naturally I could do that. And so that's how it all began. And I came back after I graduated. I worked an internship, 7 months unpaid. I just, the typical story that people give, right? Or the old schoolers anyway.
Right.
Nowadays times are changing, but it is you get your foot in the door and you don't stop coming, right? And that's how I stayed in. When I got hired, I remember the news director's conversations. I remember waiting for this call for 7 months, and he finally calls me. I was in Kahalua at my parents' house, and he says, Brenton, you keep showing up, and this is actually illegal, so we're gonna have to pay you to be on staff. It was like that, and I was like, damn.
That
That's
works.
a backwards way for a congratulation, but
Right.
welcome to the industry, right? So that's how I got in. I was one of the first hires at Hawai'i News Now when they merged together. And I did every job from intern to top anchor in my career anyway.
Amazing. Working from the bottom up. And then, what resonated for me is what you stated about being shy. You know what I mean? And that identify with that, because that's how I believe I got into communications, because I grew up on the shy side. I mean, you wouldn't know that by speaking with me. You might think, oh, you're a major extrovert, or you must have loved communications from the get-go and public speaking. No, I was shy. And however, in college is when I developed the skill, of course, with the support of mentors and of course my professors. And communication is power. Our
It
ability
is.
to, yes, and our ability to inspire, motivate, negotiate, challenge, lead. It comes down to how we impact others. And that's the effect. Communication is about how we make others feel. And if we can do that positively, then we're going to engender positivity as well. And that was the
Yeah.
appeal to
Yes.
me. And, and that's why I do what I do as well as a communications consultant, and then also with the Keiki program. And that's what I want to see. I want to see our Keiki become equipped, emboldened, educated, and become the leaders in our community. So we're building advocates here. And so I certainly can identify with what you're saying in terms of communication and,
Critical, absolutely critical.
absolutely.
It's not a job where it's not the bells and whistles. It's not the stevedore job or the Hawaiian Airlines job that's so well, and that's controversial now, but that so many people used to, want to like. But it's such a critical skill, because think about it, if you're a teacher, and I see it all the time, if you're a teacher, the way you speak to the kid, they're gonna if they're getting from you what you're trying to put out, well, if it's negative, and if it's not, if you don't know how to use proper words to get them, step by step to a place, well, you could just be scolding them all the time, and that's not going to work, right? You got to
Right.
teach. So yeah, it's invaluable, the skill. And yeah, like you, I only found it in college. And if any student or parents watching, I graduated 3.7 something at Kahuku. Went up to college. I almost failed out my first semester. I wasn't in. I didn't find communication or speech communication and leadership. That was my degree. I didn't find that until after I learned the hard way as a freshman trying to get into business, realizing that I got no business, in this industry.
Sure.
I got straight D's. And so again, I was nudged, right? I was nudged in the direction of communication. Just like my senior, I was nudged with that opportunity to do sports casting, which gained me just enough knowledge to earn an internship for the next door that I was about to open at KJMBA and then Hawai'i News Now. And then it's been like that my whole life. Even this political journey, right? Again, like I said, it's not something I want to do. People ask me to do it. But the reason why I have the tools to do it, well, one, because I was nudged in the direction of the news, which, build my skills to communicate, my writing and all that stuff that comes along with being in a newsroom. And then on the other side of it, I was a beat group. I covered the Capitol. That was my beat. And so the knowledge that I gained there, right, coming out, puts me in a really good position to run for office and represent our community. But again, the Capitol wasn't something I wanted to cover when I was a reporter. If you ask people in there, hey, what does Brenton like to cover? Oh, he likes to cover the sports, right? Like my interest, what I got into. He likes to cover feature stories about our communities, but nobody would be telling you, none of the veterans would be telling you that I was the guy who wants to cover the Capitol until it became my job, because my news director at the time, which great for him, he's not in Vegas, but he pushed me in that direction. Hey, I want you to go cover the Capitol. So again, nudged me through the door and we took off. That's how my life has been. Once we get through the door, we're in.
Well, echoing Keiki once again and the community discussion, one of your initiatives when elected into office is educational reform. I'd love to hear more about that and what inspired this initiative and what exactly would this entail?
So, I'm not an expert in the education field other than my experience going through the system, right? I went my elementary, Kapunahala Elementary, public school, King School, public school, Kahuku High School, public school, right? So I've been through it. My parents have all been through it. They're product of public schools. So that's what we know. Not many of us go private. And for generations, you hear the same thing. I teach, still, and I hear the kids saying the same thing. Why are we learning this? And when I look at it, it's like, well, and that's not something that I'm going to tell them, right? But in my opinion, yeah, some of the things that they're learning is like, this is, I show up to teach students math. And I'm not going to say where, but I show to teach students math for 2 weeks, and I found that you can't get to math until they realize the scope of life. So I start teaching life, because they're coming in and they don't realize that this group of kids, the way they're speaking to each other, everybody's bringing each other down, just by their words, going back to the communication, right? And so yeah, teaching, I know I'm getting a little off topic here, but yeah, teaching them has really shown me, if we do get into office, it's shown me ground level, at the top, when you get into the state capitol, you can make legislation and whatnot, but it's a lot of top heavy. Sometimes, when you don't have that experience, the bills don't translate. But anyway, short story. One of the things that they've been saying, right, is why do I have to learn this? And, one of the things they should be learning is financial literacy. And so that's when you talk about reform. Again, I'm not an expert, but one of the things that should be taught from elementary school all the way up, making a good habit of making good habits financially, right? And so if we're teaching kids that young and we require it, well, yeah, teachers will have to learn a little more, but hopefully they get, compensated for it. I'm a supporter that teachers need to make more money, right? in my mentality, put everything aside and make the world just simple, right? If you're just talking about the human race and making the world a better place, making humans smarter generation after generation, well, should the athletes be paid the most for entertainment, or should the teachers be paid what athletes are paid, right? If we had teachers, if that was the top, if that was the go-to job and they're getting paid all the money, right? You should get the best and the brightest who can communicate and teach these children. And so generation upon generation, well, theoretically, your human race is getting brighter, right? And I know that's not possible when you add in every factor of today's world and constraints and budget cuts and all that, but that's my mentality when it comes to the value of a teacher.
And that's vital. And to speak upon that also in terms of financial literacy, we understand that it's also oppressive to not have that knowledge base as we grow into and evolve into adulthood. I mean, not being able to balance a checkbook, not understanding debt, and credit cards and all these other areas that are not only responsible for our own survival, but affect our mental health as well. And so I feel, just as with you, financial literacy is critical. And once again, talking about how we're going to equip our keiki for the means of success for years to come. How can we do that? It's all about that knowledge base, and us coming together as a community, as educators, as coaches, as mentors, as families, parents, and so forth, and cultivating that change however that we can. But it comes down to also what I believe, of course, is the right legislative action. And that's what appealed, in terms of you addressing educational reform, financial literacy as well.
I mean, there's more too, right? Not just financial literacy at Kahuku. We have to save the farm. So, I mean, the school farm, which they got corn, they got tilapia, aquaponics, kalo, eloi, all kind over there. And it's like, if if administrators on the school level don't, if they're questioning the value, because when they look up at their leadership, the leadership, not really valuing programs like auto shop and, and wood shop and all of those things. Well, there's a certain group of kids that need those skills. And so if top down, if they're not valuing it, what do you think the school is going to do? Get rid of it, right? We've seen that happen. And so, yeah, there's a lot that got to change. There's a lot that has to change. I got called yesterday, matter of fact, because I started subbing. So people know I'm subbing, they call and they want to ask, hey, how did you do it? I want to do it too. Well, this person was on the phone with me. Hey, I got through everything, but I got an email back saying that they need more documents. And now, I guess, I saw it, I read the email. The policy apparently is you need to be vaccinated or you need a exemption. And, when I was going to school last semester, you had times when entire classrooms between 6 to 10 would be without a teacher and no sub. So they put all those kids in the cafeteria. What else are they going to do? They don't have staff. And, when those types of things aren't being addressed and we're making it more difficult to get substitute teachers, right? We have a problem. And instead of common sense solutions, make it easier to get, qualified people to come in. We make it harder, not to mention that we're discriminating against a certain group of people, right? So, I mean, there's all kind of, again, that's top down, right? That's policy. And to me, it's a big reason why we're running, is everything that we do what is right for the local people who live here, right? And it's not a party or lobbyists or any kind of agenda. It's just, well, what's the problem? What's the most common sense solution to solve this problem, and nothing else. There's too much of that nowadays, politics.
As parents, as educators, as those in our community, we're concerned. And, bringing up financial literacy again, we know that it's extraordinarily and excruciatingly expensive to even live here. How many of us have said goodbye to our friends and families who have not afforded to remain in their own homes? We're being pushed out of our own homes. And this is where the financial literacy comes in, and all these other programs. How you mentioned, agriculture and sustainability. All these programs that are going to equip our keiki, equip the future generations with the means to remain here. And that's huge, and that's why this discussion is so critical today in terms of what's it going to take for us to
I mean,
get
you
there.
talk about, this is just me and you, we're having a conversation right now, and I'm just thinking, right? But you talk about reform, like, what if the state's already building a center up in Whitmore that would help small businesses launch a value added center? It's an educational one that they're building right now, but they mimic New Zealand. And what it does is it helps people. If you have a ulu farm and you want to process your ulu and make it into flowers and product, basically come out with the final product and then sell it, the state can use money, invest money to build centers where you don't have to buy space and buy all this equipment. Well, if you can prove that you can be successful, you show us your plan, you pass this test, you come in, you make a product, we approve it, we'll give you a 5-year deal. The first year is free, and then it'll go up as you start getting on your feet and making money. But we have to provide, and people talk about it all the time, right? Provide a reason for people to want to work. You look at Kane'ohe Bay, I'm sitting in front of it right now, and there's a problem because it's being overrun with tourists right now. And I've heard things like people want to shut down the sandbar. I'm not against bans, and I'm not for bans and those kind of things. To me, those are band-aids. The crux of the problem in Kane'ohe Bay, and I know it's not education, but I'll tie it back, is there's an influx of tourists. And so what you have is you have a lot of people who just, they lost their jobs, they don't have money, they're struggling to provide, but they got a couple kayaks. So they're going to go start, catering to the tourists and making some money on the side, and they buy more kayaks. Well, what do you see in the bay? Now there's a ton of kayaks in the bay, right? It's a problem, but we shouldn't stop the people from wanting to do business. It's a good thing. People want to make money to provide for their family. What we should do is, well, in this case of the tourists, crack down on the tourists, maybe there's all kind of ideas there. I won't get into that because it's not education, but the same thing goes back with the businesses. You don't band-aid it. You provide a place, just like tourism is providing dollars. They see tourists, they see money. Well, if they see that they can farm and, get their products off the ground and create a business, well, let's give them that, right? Invest into that. And so, yeah, more of that needs to be done. Some lawmakers are doing it. And there just needs to be a lot more who are mindful that we're an island, and what we grow should be what we eat, not what we grow gets shipped off or for profit or whatever the else case may be.
Sure, I agree. And in terms of the awareness that you're bringing to many of us right now, just listening, how close are we in terms of legislative action to bring that financial literacy, educational reform, sustainability, and that growth?
So for financial literacy, and this was baffling, the politics of it. I don't know why it stopped, but financial literacy, there was a bill the session before last. So, anybody who watching, if you introduce a bill in the first year, you have the next year to pass it. So you got two chances. Well, this bill in the first year, financial literacy, it would have required, I believe, seniors at least to take it. And in short, and that bill made it all the way up to the finish line, as close as you can get to the finish line. And what happened was they just ran out of time. The bill never took a final vote. And so what happens with that financial literacy bill? It stalls right there at that point. It can be picked up the next year. So the next year came, that was this year. And rather than anybody bringing that bill up for a final, vote, the bill, nobody made a peep. Instead, they tried to increase sex ed and make it a misdemeanor for anyone who annoys an educator. That bill was later changed because the wordage was so poorly written. But the fact of the matter is that they put all this work into a bill that made it through the whole session and was a vote away from being mandated in to the DOE to go teach this. And instead, they just completely left it hanging, which at the end of this session, it died. So now that process would have to start all over again if somebody wanted to reintroduce it. right? So all that work has to, and that happens in the capital over and over and over again. And I'm no expert, but I've seen it. I know reasons why those kind of things happen, and it's just kind of the way it is. But we hope to change that kind of mindset. We're not going to let those kind of, if something is that close, we're gonna raise it so people know, right? It's not going to go under, our radar.
It's absolutely disheartening also to hear that we were that close. And, I wasn't aware that we were that close. And just knowing though that we were there and that, all it takes is, I'm not all it takes, because I know that there's more involved in that, but putting the right people into office, that's critical. Who's going to advocate for us as locals, as natives, and who's going to uplift our lahui also, our
It's
community, our
also, I'll probably real quick on, because it's not, it doesn't just come, lawmakers aren't superheroes, right? You're going to put one in there and they're going to change the world. It's not going to happen, but because you need a group of them, they all work together, but it goes beyond lawmakers. I mean, there's lobbyists, there's unions, right? And you know how all that works. The unions tying to campaigns help a certain person win, and then, they're on the hook. But that stuff got to stop. I don't care what union you are, or, who you're lobbying for, who's paying your bills. Like, at the end of the day, all we got to do is do what's right, for the people who live here. And there's not enough of that, because you have problems that have common sense solutions again, and there's so much that gets in the way, and so much different kinds of thoughts, rather than going A to B, it's like A to Z, X, Y, and it just gets convoluted. And sometimes, like the financial literacy, it never gets picked up again. And so really the message should be to everybody, And I know it's hard, especially for lawmakers who have been in there a long time and the system is the way it is. And the ones who came before them, they got a system, right? But,
Right.
Really, if you're for Hawaii, if you're for this place and its people, then you got to do what's right for the people. It's as simple as that,
There's something that you reference, and I'm going to quote you. It's Malama mentality. Malama mentality. And I feel that coming from you as you're speaking and with your passion, as you're sharing about what's happening and what we can do in order to bring forth change also, and knowing that we're there, but we just have to ensure that the right action and the right mindset also is in place to cultivate opportunities for change. So Malama mentality, could you share more about that and how this mindset informs your work and what you're striving for here?
Yeah. So in simplest form, how I was just saying, Malama mentality is care for others, right? Like, you care for the land, the ocean, and the people. It's that simple, and if you do that every day, like I said, when I go into the classroom and kids are talking negative to each other, well, if they're in their bubble talking negative with their peers, and that's continuing up, right? How do you think, what's going to happen when they get out? That's going to happen in the workplace and their families, right? So Malama mentality is basically a mentality of, like, I don't know, emotional talk about it, but it's simple. It's just, do what is right. Do what is right, and think about others over yourself, because that'll get rid of greed. If people would be more selfless, then where would greed be, right?
Right. And when I hear that also in terms of the effect that has on myself as well, we hear, and it's a popular phrase, be the change you wish to see in the world. But how many of us, we might have a nice mindset, but how are we enacting that? Are we the first to initiate or extend aloha? Oftentimes I feel like we might be waiting for someone to do it to us, and then we will share that. But it honestly starts with us. And like you mentioned, it's about community, it's about putting others first. And we know that in terms of energy, positivity engenders positivity, negativity engenders negativity. So ultimately, we have to be the ones to initiate that. And it's not,
Yep.
it's more so, the behavioral aspect of putting it into motion.
And not everybody's gonna be comfortable with it, but people ask, how can I help, right? How can I, what can I do in my community? Well, yeah, you can be a leader of aloha, right? You can do that.
Yes.
So just take the initiative, like you said. That's what really matters is people that, for us, we walk the walk. What we say is what we do. And we don't expect everybody to do that, because there's different personalities, but yeah, if more people could, it would be a good thing.
Absolutely. Be the example of it. Okay. So I also want to ask Brenton, what sets you apart from the incumbent in this race?
I mean, it's so people have a distinct choice. And I'll stop and pausing, but I realize that this is going to be recorded and shared later, so I'm not going to clip this out, but because we'll be on PBS tonight. But people are going to have a distinct choice of leadership, and I don't want to put anybody down, and people should go look at the other candidate. But what I have seen, I've been a constituent for 10 years, under this senator, and the difference, you know, like I said, when we do something, we walk the walk. So we knew, after looking at all the data, that to win a state Senate seat, 95% of the time, the person who does it is the person who raises the most money. We chose to not ask for a single dime. That puts us already behind the 8 ball. We have to be one of the 5%, you know, that knocked down the mountain. We're not afraid of that challenge. My whole life's been a challenge, right? Like winning a state title at Kahuku against the odds. Private schools typically win the state title for wrestling. You know, going to college, wrestling D1 defies the odds for kids from Hawaii. Getting into the news and becoming the top news anchor at the age that I did, being a native Hawaiian defies the odds. And so, yeah, for leadership, like when we say we're going to do what's right for the locals, we've shown it this whole campaign. We've only done, you know, when we put up a sign in somebody's yard, I don't put up the sign so my name gets up. I started getting signs because so many people wanted signs, you know, and so I was having to go down my list and personally deliver, talk to everybody, sign their name, sign my name, put up the sign. But I'd see my opponents, you know, their signs would be up a foot away, blocking mine a day later.
Right.
There was no permission asked, nothing. They're just doing the political, you know. Oh, so-and-so, I know that guy. I'm gonna stick it over there. I know brother. But hey, brother's voting for us. That's unethical. You know, we don't do that kind of stuff. Because in the campaign, from what I see, campaigns will show you a lot about how somebody's going to run an office. First off, going back to the number, about 95% of people who win the state Senate seat raise the most money. We decided to go against that, and we're doing it for a fifth of the cost. So full cost would be about $150,000. Think about all that money, right? Every candidate who's going, if they want to win, they're raising about that much, and that number is going up too every election season because people know they got to push the limit, right? And when you're doing that and you're tying yourself into all those contributors, all that money, well, who are you tied to? You're tied to the unions. You're tied to the lobbyists. You're tied to all these people who are going to want returns, right? You're not tied to the people you're supposed to represent. So, I mean, for us, that's our purpose. Our purpose is to give people a chance to be elected, to elect one of their own, you know, as simple as that. And in the country, there's no other place I would run. I'll tell you that. People tried to get me to move, to run out of I'm not going to say what seat, but somewhere in town because they thought it was an easy seat. I told them, what's your guys' purpose? Win seats and represent people. There's only, you know, I know a lot of Hawaii. I got friends everywhere, but I spend my life here in Kahaluu, in Ka'ava, Kahuku, you know, so there'll be no other place. And so that's what this is all about. This is about giving those people a chance.
That's critical, and I so appreciate you sharing about your journey, and of course you are incredibly supported in my community. I remember seeing you in our community and talking to others on foot, and I thought, wow, this guy really, he's not afraid of having the tough conversations, you know, having that dialogue, bringing awareness to what is critical and what we care about in our community.
That was the mentality. That was the mentality going and doing that. I walked every house. A lot of houses I walked twice, some 3-4 times. But what I realized, you know, just recently is people started looking at me funny now. And no, I'm serious. I walk up, whoa, I lost a lot of weight. And so I lost more than 20 pounds in the past year, doing all this stuff and, giving up everything. And I realized like, oh, I saved a lot of money to the campaign, because had I used the mail and direct mailed all those flyers, it's $10,000 to $15,000 a crack. So, I saved almost $40,000 by losing 20 pounds for my community, if you're
Oh,
for a headline.
that if we work together, change is imminent. And most critically, though, the right people have to be in office. And so you're certainly someone that we believe in terms of the Kahaluu community where I am. And so with that stated, any words for our community before we sign off, Brenton?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't want to be, the candidate who says it over and over every year. We say the same thing, right? Vote. I don't like to say vote. I don't ask people for their vote. I would like it to be generated from people, if what we're doing, impacts you and moves you, think about it. Think about it, think about doing that part. But yeah, me, I'm not one to ever force anybody to do anything, right? In the news, it was just, you tell the facts, you let people, weigh it, and they can come to their own conclusion. We've put in the work a year now. And hopefully, yeah, people see it.
You're out there, you're educating the community, and I feel that, of course, knowledge is power, so we're being empowered by this opportunity to connect here. So mahalo, Brenton Awa, representing District 23 for State Senate. Mahalo again for joining me here.
Hey, mahalo to you.